no man-made creation could adequately capture his likeness. An oracle also warned that the Colossus should never be rebuilt. Though it lay in ruins, thousands still came and were astounded by it.
Even as it lies, it excites our wonder and imagination. Few men can clasp the thumb in their arms. The fingers alone are larger than most statues. Where the limbs are broken asunder, vast dark caverns can be seen yawning in the interior. Pliny the Elder, 50 CE.
After it had fallen, the pieces remained on the ground, remained lying where they'd fallen, and people came to look at them and said that they tried to put their arms around the fingers to see how big they were and so on, of this fallen statue. And that suggests it was on dry land. If it had been at the harbour mouth and had fallen, you'd expect it to fall in the sea. So perhaps it was dragged onto the dry land, perhaps it was a navigational hazard.
The statue lay untouched for another 900 years, until the Arab invasion of Rhodes in the year 654. The bronze, which was still a highly prized commodity, was sold. Nearly 1,000 camels and dozens of ships were required to carry the sections away. Thus the bronze was returned whence it actually came, to be smelted down as coins, as tools, as religious artifacts, as weapons. Undoubtedly, some of it survives to this day, in one form or another. An enduring link to that ancient time when the Colossus was one of the 7 wonders of the world. When we return, the fabled Hanging Gardens of Babylon, long regarded as mere legend, but now new research has revealed this paradise may have been more than mere fantasy. Babylon. For a brief moment in the 6th century BC, it was reputed to have been the most magnificent city in the world. Located in what is now Iraq, it sprawled alongside the mighty Euphrates River. The fabled city was constructed in a giant square, each side of which was 12 miles in length. Its walls were at least 10 feet thick, and according to Herodotus, in places they towered 300 feet high. The crowning glory of the entire complex was said to be the famous Hanging Gardens. This earthly paradise was originally built by King Nebuchadnezzar. He was saddened by the homesickness of his favorite wife, a princess from a kingdom in the mountains to the northeast. She desperately craved the cool streams and lush trees of her distant homeland. Nebuchadnezzar ordered that a magnificent garden be built to shield her from the harsh summer sun of the Babylonian desert.
The paths are full of scent. The waterfalls sparkle like the stars of heaven in this garden of pleasure. The pomegranate trees, which are clothed with clusters of fruit like vines, enrich the breezes with their fragrance. King Ashurnasir Paul II, 9th century BCE.
chroniclers visiting the gardens almost 1,000 years after they were created also wrote glowing reports of their splendor.
Numerous lofty trees afford a grateful shade above the city. The trees are 12 feet in circumference, 50 feet in height. A distant spectator of these shaded groves might suppose them to be forests growing on a magnificent wooded mountain. Quintus Curtius, writer, 1st century CE.
For centuries, historians have tried to imagine what the gardens looked like. Some believe that Herodotus, the Greek father of history, reported a magnificent garden somewhere in the region during the 5th century BC, but his writings do not mention it. Most accounts describe a structure 30 stories high. The gardens were apparently built on a series of terraces. There was a profusion of exotic flowering plants, meticulously arranged and tended, all growing far above the city throng. Eventually, the relentless forces of nature prevailed, and the entire city, including the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, succumbed to the encroaching desert sands. The legend of the Hanging Gardens, like the Garden of Eden, has always captured the popular imagination. But for a long time, many ancient writings cast serious doubt on their existence. If they did exist, some argued, perhaps they were constructed elsewhere and not actually within Babylon. In the 19th century, German archaeologist Robert Koldewey discovered what he believed was evidence that proved the Hanging Gardens had existed. The first clue was a number of stone arches that could easily have supported the massive weight of trees, earth, rocks, and water viaducts. Then he found a shaft descending from rooftop level deep down into the ground, which might have been a well for which water for the gardens was drawn. Further research revealed that the area directly beneath the roof was used for some form of storage. Could this have been a water reservoir? If so, how was the water transported all the way up to rooftop level centuries before the invention of the pump? Careful examination of ancient Greek texts provided the answer.
To get water to the very top of the roof of the garden, there are special spiral screws. The task of these screws is to continually bring up water from the Euphrates and to disseminate it throughout the gardens for the purpose of refreshing the garden. Strabo, historian-writer, 1st century BCE.
Though a new technology at the time, in later centuries the rotating screw pump would become known as the Archimedes screw. With its ability to deliver large quantities of water with great efficiency, it would eventually revolutionize agriculture throughout the world.